Hi, I'm Jason Rand. Today I wanted to tell you how you can use Apache Airflow to create a state-of-the-art automated data pipeline to power your AI clone for creating your website, or running your social media, or however you may be utilizing your AI. So there's basically four parts of the process. The first thing you need to understand is how to create an Apache Airflow directed acyclic graph, or DAG. This is a really fancy name, and it's all just a metaphor. There's not actually a graph, or at least there's not necessarily. You can add on extra pieces of software to create a graph for you to look at if you'd like. But the core idea is just that you're scheduling a computer program to run at a certain time, and then you're adding on extra metadata to tell it how to handle different errors that may come up, or to tell it to encode pieces of information about your system in the database when it's recording a response from some program or something like that. So these extra pieces of information beyond just the scheduled task itself. The next part of the process is to understand cloning, which is simply the process of making an LLM or other forms of AI and automation resemble a human being of interest, such as yourself. In the third step, we're going to look at how to socialize, meaning how to have your AI agent go out on the internet and act as you, or act as some other person who you're emulating. And if it's a third party who's not yourself, then you need to be very careful to make sure you have their consent, and to make sure that the general public is aware that this is an AI clone and not a real human being. Finally, we'll talk about how to capitalize. There's a few different ways you can do it, and we'll talk about those. Okay, first let's talk about those DAGs again. So the name of the Apache project is Airflow, and that's the task automation. This is built on top of something called cron. So cron jobs are very simple, and I encourage you to go look these up on Google or Bing or Wikipedia or whatever resource you may use, or have an AI explain it to you. They're just one-liners, just one line of code where you fill out a few numbers to let the system know when to run a particular script. It could be a bash shell script, which is just to say a command line program in Linux or in Mac OS, or a Windows BAT, like a batch file, or it could be something else like a Python file or a JavaScript file. Well, Windows already built on top of that and made a better version called a scheduled task, which adds on metadata like information on the system where it's running. But the newest and best version of this is called directed acyclic graph, which runs in a program called Airflow, which is the Apache project Airflow. Some of the commercial versions of this in the cloud include Google's Cloud Composer. Those are available for a fee, and they work really well and offer additional insights by giving you pre-made graphs, special logs, and working with the rest of their cloud infrastructure. There's also equivalent offerings on Microsoft Azure and AWS. So we're going to use this to automate the collection of data for your AI clone. In my case, I use this to scrape news headlines, and then I showed the news headlines to my clone, and I have it comment on them on social media. So we've discussed this one before. Making the AI act like you, or whoever you want it to act like, is called cloning. We can do this really quickly and easily using the prompt, as most people do, creating a persona, if you will. Or we can more fundamentally customize a model by fine-tuning it. And if we want to go all out, then we can create an AI with a clone voice, a clone video avatar. Usually there's a little box that says AI somewhere in the video, so that you're being transparent and not too manipulative. And hopefully we'll all follow those rules to do that, but of course it's not a legal requirement either at this point. And so what will we do with these clones? Well, we could allow them to socialize if we'd like. That could mean that they're going on the internet and creating their own websites, publishing blogs, or participating in social networks. There are some social networks that charge for robotic or programmatic access via API, such as X, formerly known as Twitter, and there are others where you might find that it's still allowed, either explicitly or implicitly. Now for the fun part, how to make money with this stuff. So I personally have made money by teaching or by reducing the expenses of my existing business through creating AI customer service agents and AI teaching aids. You can also make influencer income by generating content and producing ad-driven revenue the same as you'd make as a human influencer, but that's something that I personally have less experience with, so you'd be better off hearing about that from someone else.
First, we need to import the necessary components from Airflow. We'll need the DAG object itself, the datetime object for scheduling, and for our task, we'll start with a simple bash operator. Let's define the DAG object. This is the container for our entire workflow. We'll instantiate it inside a with statement, which is a common best practice. Let's quickly go over each of these parameters. DAG ID is the unique identifier for our entire DAG. Start date tells Airflow when to run, and catch-up equals false prevents the DAG from running for past unrun schedules. Most importantly, schedule. I set it to 0, 2, ****. This is a cron expression that tells Airflow to run this DAG every day at 2 a.m. UTC. Now that we have our DAG, let's add some tasks. A task is an individual piece of work in our pipeline. We'll use the bash operator to run simple command line commands. Here we've created two tasks. Task 1 is simply going to print a hello message, and task 2 will print a world message. Each of the tasks has a unique task ID within the DAG.
This one is called AI Objectivist. So let's just have a quick look at some source code that I half wrote and half generated as a way of creating this AI clone. This one uses Python and a system prompt. Let's look at the system prompt first, because you can use this even as a no-code user. I have put together some details about the persona I want it to use, as well as the execution environment and the social network to which it'll be posting. I make sure it's very clear that the general public is going to read its output, and I provided details on the topics that I might want it to comment on. So this part is definitely reusable, not so much verbatim, but as a general concept, what you're going to do, regardless of whether or not you're going to take a code-based solution or a prompt engineering only based approach. Either way, you can set up a great AI clone in a very short amount of time and have it do things for you, such as reply to emails or talk to visitors on your website. Thanks for your time. This has been Jason Rand and Post-socialist.com.